Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Grindberg asked me why I'm wearing my LSU baseball hat.
Why are you wearing your LSU baseball hat, bigz?
Because it's got a big L on it, just like all of these guys we're going to talk about. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and bigz. He is Grindberg. I am bigz. On our last episode, we talked about the guys that rose in rankings and etc. in the 2025 NFL draft. Today, we're going to talk about the Zahers, who absolutely fell on their faces. I had a buddy who was talking about playing in a softball game, and they had just muddied down the field, and so he went and slid head first and did a scorpion. Feet came over the back, ass over tea kettle, and that's what these guys did. Face plant, ankles over the head. And how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, you got me a little rattled there. I love that intro, man. That was awesome. Can't get better than that. Old school style, Grindberg and bigz, gotta love it. And we're back, and we got some losers to talk about. Unfortunately, some people had to lose. We had a really good show the last time we're on here talking about the winners of the draft and people that were affected by it. And we're gonna dig deep. We're going to get in some insight here for guys that you may want to avoid in your, fantasy drafts coming up down the line, whether it's a rookie draft, if you're playing dynasty, or, coming up on redraft. So bigz, let's talk about quarterback, tight end position. And who do you got on the slate here for your faller?
Well, I went with a quarterback in our risers, and I went with a tight end in our fallers because I really couldn't find more than one quarterback to talk about who fell. So I'll leave that to you. But I'm going to talk about tight end Colstan Loveland. Now, there was a lot of talk leading up to the draft that Colstan Loveland might have been the best tight end in this class, similar to the stuff that we heard about Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer in Sam Laporta's class. But Colstan Loveland went to one of the worst landing spots he possibly could have found, and that's the Chicago Bears. Now, you know me, and you know how out I was on the Chicago Bears situation last year. And even offensive coordinator Ben Johnson coming over to Chicago and taking over doesn't make me feel any better about the Bears situation. In fact, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about another one in a little bit. Colstan Loveland winds up on a team with Cole Kmet in front of him. Cole Kmet is an established tight end in the National Football League. That means a lot. Colstan Loveland is a young buck, not a blocker. They already have DJ Moore and Rome Odunze in their wide receiver core, and they just added Luther Burden. That's another mouth to feed. Caleb Williams showed last year that he wasn't the most efficient quarterback, not the most accurate quarterback. So all those mouths to feed doesn't look good for Colstan Loveland to have like a big rookie year breakout on the line of Sam Laporta, Kyle Pitts, Brock Bowers, etc. And that's what you want from your tight end position. Talking to Andrew Cooper at Koopa Fiasco on Twitter, the tight end guru, he has basically laid out that in any given draft class, there's really only the first two guys off the board who are going to produce. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Loveland did not help himself getting picked by the Chicago Bears, even if he was the first one off the board. He fell way down in my ranks, and I hate the situation for him.
Yeah, Lee, there's a lot of mouths to feed there. So, yeah, you're going to have to wait. And like you said, established tight end that knows how to block. They're not going to put a lot of assignments down Loveland's way if he can't block very well, especially with how much Caleb Williams struggled last year getting the ball out and not seeing his reads properly. So, yeah, I like what you said there. I'm going to talk about, the elephant in the room, the one that's been talked about probably a lot over the last, week or so. And that's Shedeur Sanders' fall from grace. Shedeur Sanders.
I've never heard of him.
Well, he's a 5th round pick. He's a guy that you really, but I'm going to talk to you about him. And because he was seen as a potential 1st round pick and a future star in the NFL. He had a pretty good college career from Jackson State and Colorado. He's got the pedigree, the production, and he was a exciting fantasy asset in the making. However, his draft stock took a complete significant hit and fell into the 5th round of the NFL draft. He had a guy that was being, mocked, 4 rounds later than him, go ahead of him and Gabriel. And now, that unexpected slide coupled with some competition. Joe Flacco is probably going to lead the way there. From a standpoint, it's going to be a long road ahead for Shedeur Sanders to climb the depth chart now. He had some decent stats. We all know that. 70% completion percentage, 4,600 yards, 37 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He didn't have a whole lot of rushing upside, but this slide shows a lot about, where he sits in the NFL's eyes. And obviously he's not a starter and not 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, but 5th round draft capital. And, that's not good. And it's going to take him a long time to get out of that. Maybe he'll play with a chip on his shoulders. Who knows?
There was a lot of time in this pre-draft process where I felt like I was a man alone in a forest yelling to nobody. But the NFL totally backed up my Shedeur Sanders take. I've talked a lot about Shedeur Sanders over the last few days. I'm going to talk more in about 10 minutes on my own show because I'm going to lead off with a big Shedeur Sanders rant. But let's just say this. Shedeur Sanders was the quarterback at the University of Colorado, and his offensive coordinator was Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur is a former NFL head coach and offensive coordinator with extensive experience and lots of connections. We know of connections because of how many people John Gruden stays in contact with and how much of an influence he had the whole 10 years that he wasn't coaching between his Raiders stints and Buccaneers and Raiders stints. Pat Shurmur is locked into the NFL zeitgeist, whatever. That GMs, scouting department directors, owners, they're talking to Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur designed that offense at the University of Colorado to play to Shedeur's strengths, which weren't very many. It wasn't a complicated offense. It wasn't an offense that was going to get him ready to play in the NFL. And it didn't do him any favors. He's not an athletic quarterback. They say that he has good processing, but he holds the ball longer than any other quarterback in college football. He was efficient, but I mean, it was an offense that was set up for him to be efficient with Travis Hunter. It didn't play in the NFL's eyes, and that was in stark relief. Him dropping to the 5th round because of the scuttlebutt and the narrative in the ether. Even on draft day, I was still not sure that he wasn't going to be taken as the 2nd or 3rd pick, right? And he fell to the 5th round. That's unprecedented. Even Aaron Rodgers, his fall stopped at 24. It's crazy what happened to Shedeur Sanders, and it's very unfair to him because he should have been told from the beginning, you're a late round guy. We're going to be drafting Dillon Gabriel ahead of you, or somebody like Dillon Gabriel ahead of you. You're not going to be the 2nd quarterback. Those should have been things in his ear. Somebody should have been upfront with him and honest and told him about it. And it's pretty tragic what happened to him, but he's not very good. And I've been trying to tell people, and that's true now.
There you go. All right, let's talk about our community.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
All right. My wide receiver faller is super disappointing. Super nice kid. Got to interview him during the draft. I reposted the interview from the Senior Bowl that I did with him and Jaden Higgins. Jalen Noel falling where he fell to the Houston Texans is a huge, huge hit for me. No, almost nobody had as much steam as him coming into the draft, and he landed about where he would have if you had asked people before the Senior Bowl where Jalen Noel was going to be drafted. We thought he was going to get high second-round draft capital. That did not happen. He went to a now crowded wide receiver room. I talked on the show before about how Jaden Higgins was a riser simply because of the role he's going to play, the draft capital that he's going to carry, the fact that Nico Collins may or may not miss some games this year. And it's really, really sad for Jalen Noel where he went, because it's like with the Bears situation. It's another mouth to feed, and he cannot reach wide receiver 2 status if he's not getting wide receiver 2 targets. And at this point, it doesn't look like that's going to happen in Houston.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think he's got a role maybe where he can carve out something there, being able to play the slot. That's a vacant role there, and that's what I'm hoping for down the line. We'll see what happens. Like that Tank Dell, we know that he might not play most of 2025 if he does at all. So there's an opportunity there. I know they got Christian Kirk, who's a veteran that might probably get into that role right away, but injury or something happens, he might just be the better guy in camp and could carve out that role and be on that field. Then I'd be a little bit more optimistic about it. But yeah, like you said, he's headed into a really crowded wide receiver room. They clearly were really happy to get Jaden Higgins in the early part of that second round there. So that was the guy that they took there. So yeah, he's going to be ahead of them in the pecking order. They're obviously different wide receivers, but yeah, it took a bit of a hit here, and I'm interested to see how this training camp plays out with Christian Kirk there.
And that's not to mean that he's not going to be successful. It's just he didn't go to a situation that I liked, and he went later than I liked. So I had to take those things into consideration.
Yeah. And same thing happened to here with Elic Aomanor. His slide leaves his fantasy value coming in limbo here. He was once a promising prospect, game-breaking ability. He had a bright future. He had explosive performance, particularly that unforgettable one. Everybody talks about it against Colorado and Travis Hunter. He had 3 touchdowns, I think 290 yards or something like that. It was a huge game, and that made people look at him and thinking that he might be steaming up here. Didn't go that way. 4th round draft capital, not the greatest, and it's to the Titans. Sorry, they've got significantly dampened his outlook in my perspective here. He's not a guy I'm going to be looking at, drafting in any sort of redraft, a dart throw now, maybe in the 4th round. I think he's going now in Dynasty. It's unfortunate that slide that he had. It's just that current landing spot. It just diminished his value in general in 2025. Although he's got that big playability, it's undeniable. He's inconsistent, and that lack of immediate path to a starting role make him a risky investment, especially in redraft leagues. Had he gotten a little bit better draft capital and been on the Titans, I would have been a little bit more optimistic, but now he's just another guy in the room, and he's going to have to really work hard to get on the field, and I don't see it happening right away.
Another guy that I talked about that people tried to say that he had some steam or whatever, and I tried to say, you guys don't understand, this guy's not very good, and the NFL kind of showed it. All those times I drafted him in the 1st round in mock drafts to Johnny Tuma's Broncos, that was trolling. That wasn't that he didn't have potential to go in the 1st round. That was just me being a jerk.
I love
it. All right. I'm going to get to my running back faller, and that's going to be Devin Neal. Another guy I got to interview at the Senior Bowl, super nice kid, and I had high hopes for him. He had 1,500 yards 3 years in a row, 1,200 yards 3 years in a row, something like that, at Kansas. And he carries himself. You watch the tape, you watch him be successful as a running back, and I had high hopes for Devin Neal until he goes to the 6th round to New Orleans, who have Kendre Miller with draft capital over him. They have Alvin Kamara, who's got a $28 million cap hit, so he's not going anywhere. Devin Neal did not get the best situation. And it just goes to show what I was talking about in our last episode about how the environment changes so much when this guy, who could have gone to a team that needed a running back on day 1, and performed goes in the 6th round. That's how much talent is in the running back space. And all that does is cloud everything up. It just means that, you have to start looking at, you can't look at talent anymore. You have to start looking harder at who the guys ahead of them are, what they're being paid, what their draft capital was, et cetera, and rank them kind of that way, because the talent waters are being diluted. Everybody can run. Everybody can, break tackles. Everybody can catch. All those things. And the differences are basically splitting hairs. So he just wound up in a bad situation. I had him in the top 10. He didn't go in the top 10. He didn't go in the 3rd round. He didn't go in the 4th round. He went in the 6th round. And it was very disheartening for me to watch him fall like that.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough spot, and we'll see what happens. I like the talent still. I think that, if something happens to Kamara, maybe there's a shot there. You were big on Kendre Miller, leading up to
Still
the last.
am.
Yeah, exactly. So, he may get a shot. He hasn't been the coach's favorite in the past, so maybe that has dampened his attitude, and maybe he might get a shot here. I like Devin Neal. Still, hopefully there's an opportunity down the line for him. But yeah, definitely crowded backfield. Absolutely. Now I'm going to talk about DJ Giddens, who's my faller. He was getting steamed up, especially after the combine. He had a standout year at Kansas State in 2024, rushed for over 1,200 yards and scoring double-digit touchdowns. Good vision, great elusiveness. He's got that receiving ability, and he's an intriguing prospect heading into the draft. But in the Colts crowded backfield, it's going to sharply limit his upside, especially with Jonathan Taylor there. And that, Anthony Richardson, especially if he's going to be the starting quarterback for the near future, that's going to cap out any sort of opportunity for Giddens. And, it's just a crammed area for me. 5th round draft capital, not the greatest at all. And that fall to the 5th round, that landing spot with the Colts, long-term project, but not a immediate fantasy relevance whatsoever, with Jonathan Taylor, still in his prime here.
Giddens could be a super, super late sleeper in best ball, and win you some leagues, but that's about it.
Yeah, if he gets the opportunity, that could pop off. He's got that athletic score that really pops off the charts here. So, if he gets the opportunity, maybe he can make good with it. But that's all you got to worry. That's all you got to be hopeful for with some of these guys, especially these late round, 5th round guys that tend to slide down the line here. Awesome, man. Let's get into our spotlights. But before we do that, let's talk about our rookie guide, bigz. It's about to launch. What do you know about it?
I know a couple things. I know that it has some ranks. I know that it has some analytical stats. I know that it has a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears by a lot of really good analysts. And it's going to be very important for you heading into your rookie drafts, and you're going to need to get it. So as soon as it drops, we'll have links out for you on Twitter and on Fantasy Sports Advice Network. So make sure that you have your Fantasy Sports Advice Network account, and grab that rookie guide as soon as it drops, because you're gonna win leagues because of it.
You betcha. Now let's get into our spotlights, and bigz, I'm excited to hear about yours.
All right, I'm going to talk about my big draft day faller. But first, I have a couple of honorable mentions or dishonorable mentions, as it were. The first is Lan Larison. Lan Larison, my boy, he had 4th round talent, wound up being a UDFA, but he did sign a fairly nice contract with the New England Patriots. They did draft a couple of running backs already, and he's going to be in a crowded room. But if there's anybody who's going to wow Mike Vrabel enough to make a team as a UDFA, it's going to be Lan Larison. If you don't know him, look him up. Go to my Twitter page and search Lan Larison. The one-handed catches, the hurdling over guys, the 800 receiving yards to top off 1,400 rushing yards. The kid's for real. And he's going to be a good one eventually. It's just not going to happen as soon as I wanted. My other dishonorable mentions are going to be Tez Johnson, Ricky White, Caden Prather, Kanata Mumpfield, Dominic Lovett, and Junior Bergen. You were all 7th round draft picks, and especially Tez Johnson and Ricky White. Those guys were talked about as sleepers and everything. You were 7th round draft picks. What does that mean? That means that you were drafted behind Raiders 6th round wide receiver Tommy Mellott, who was an FCS quarterback before the draft and is an NFL wide receiver now that you all lost draft capital to. He hasn't played wide receiver, and he got drafted ahead of you guys. What are you doing? Those are my dishonorable mentions. But I'm excited to see Tommy Mellott. I got to watch him lay waste to my UC Davis Aggies for 3 years, and guy is hyper athletic. A lot of people are comping him to Julian Edelman, who made a similar. He went from Kent State as a quarterback to the Patriots. Took a few years on special teams and learning the wide receiver position. And if Mellott works that hard, in a couple of years, he could be a Julian Edelman type. And that's fun. That's worth a 6th round draft pick. But my top draft day faller is Luther Burden. I know Grindberg had him as a riser last week, and I kind of disagree. And it goes along with what I was talking about Colstan Loveland. I hate the landing spot for him. I hate the fact that he went to the Bears. The Bears are not going to be able to utilize him the way that he needs to be utilized. He has a similar route tree to DJ Moore, who's already there and is like a $70 million cap hit if they try and cut him. He's also going to he has a huge contract, so that makes him almost untradeable. DJ Moore is not leaving Chicago for at least the next 2 years. That doesn't help. Neither does the fact that Rome Odunze and Cole Kmet and now Colstan Loveland are also there. They're mouths to feed, man. It's mouths to feed. You have to take that into consideration. There are too many mouths to feed for Luther Burden to have a big rookie season. He might not hit for until his 3rd year. It sucks because, we all thought that he was going to come out and be a wide receiver too. He might be a wide receiver 4.
He wasn't for me, I think he was a riser because he rose from my wide receiver 8 to my wide receiver 5. And I don't think this landing spot is horrible for him if things clear up, midway through this year. I don't think he's going to have a huge rookie season. And I didn't even say that on the last show. I was just more of, explaining that I think he's and I'm not justifying it's not like we're battling here anyway. I'm just saying he's got that opportunity for me in being able to play in that slot role potentially and be a guy that might be getting some dump offs. I don't see them bringing in, they didn't bring in a big hard-nosed running back, and I think they're going to be designing some plays. He's got a history of being, a lot of design plays headed his way. So this was actually a good spot for me considering where I saw him headed in other situations. And I wasn't bullish on him headed into the draft. I'm not bullish now, but he rose in my books. So maybe I should have been a little bit more explaining that on our last show for our viewers, because they may be going out there drafting him because I said he was a huge riser, but he was a huge riser in my book. But I also mentioned wide receiver 8 to wide receiver 5.
Right. And so there are different contextual clues for risers and fallers. I just wanted him to have the opportunity to go to a place where he was going to be able to break out of what he was at Missouri. And what you're talking about is him being used in the same way. He and DJ Moore are kind of like the George Pickens, DK Metcalf. It's like who's going to move off of what and who's going to go where. And it's just like he did rise because of his draft capital and all that stuff. In fact, I think I might have ranked him higher at post-draft than I did pre-draft. It's just the situation for me is scary and makes me leery. And that was
100%.
That's a fall for me.
I love it. Yeah, we gave our viewers a lot of good context on Luther Burden, and it's important to get all those angles from that perspective. Now, a guy that is a huge faller for me. A lot of people had him in the top 10 in the wide receivers for this rookie class before the combine, and the combine just shook his draft capital. Obviously, him not getting selected at all now, he took a major hit, and that's Isaiah Bond. He was once considered one of the top prospects, like I mentioned. Explosive speed and big playability. He finds himself outside looking in now. He doesn't have a team. His college career, he was an Alabama alumni, and then he went to Texas. So a couple big name schools there that, garner a lot of wide receiver attention. So everybody thought Bond was going to get this good landing spot, decent draft capital, and now he's essentially undraftable. His legal troubles to add to another layer of complexity. That's probably, another reason why he didn't get drafted. He struggles against, physical defenders because of his size. So I think, there's a lot of red flags for NFL teams, and now there's red flags for fantasy managers. And, unless he gets a good deal, he's just some guy that is no longer even in the conversation. And that's unfortunate because Isaiah Bond was a trendy name about, a month ago. And now he's, he probably won't get talked up much unless he, gets some UDFA deal and injury happens and he works his way up. But it's a long road. That's a year or two away down the line at least.
Yeah, and I mean, he came out before the combine and said that he was going to run faster than Rashi Rice or whatever, Xavier Worthy. And not only did he not get drafted, but he still hasn't been signed. And he got prank called by somebody saying that he was the Falcons GM and going to pick him. And just like what happened with Shedeur Sanders, like, come on, guys. That's I was showing somebody my Abdul Carter interview yesterday when I was at work, and told him that 2 minutes before that interview, or within the 2 minutes of that interview, he now was $30 million richer, and the guy had a conniption. Imagine thinking that that's the case, and then it's a prank call. That would just be awful.
It's horrible. It's like winning the lottery, but not.
Yeah.
Oh well. You win some, you lose some, and that's a lose. And that was our show of losers. And that brings us to our end here. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show. Remember to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Bigz, take us home like you always do so eloquently.
Hey, make sure you pick up the rookie guide. Make sure you go to FSAN and get your membership and stuff. Follow us on Twitter at BigBonedFFB and at FFCanuck99. Like and subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff, and we hope you win.
We hope you win, folks, and we'll see you next time.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.